and Communication Technology presents Educational Satellite Television Programs.
Hello, teacher. Hello, students. Welcome to today's lesson on bacteria and disease. In our last lesson, we discussed the role of bacteria in the ecosystem. We established that bacteria are very important for balancing certain elements in ecosystems. Bacteria decompose dead organisms, and organic wastes provide minerals for living organisms. We looked at two examples, the nitrogen cycle and the sulfur cycle. Today is the first of a two-part lesson on bacteria and disease. In this lesson, we are going to compare infectious diseases with functional diseases. We are also going to discuss the germ theory. I am ready to begin if you are. The germ theory is a fundamental principle in microbiology which states that infectious diseases are caused by microorganisms. Louis Pasteur, a French chemist and microbiologist, developed the theory in the mid-19th century with the help of a few other scientists. Pasteur showed that microorganisms in the air causes wine to go sour. Later, Lister showed that carbolic acid, also known as phenol, acts as a disinfectant. He also showed that if carbolic acid is used, it could prevent disease in bones after surgery was performed. Once more research established a link between microorganisms and disease, a scientist named Robert Koch compiled a list of ideas to summarize how disease-causing microorganisms behave. This is known as Koch's postulates. The first idea was that microorganisms must always be present when the disease is present, and should not be present if the disease is not present. The second was that microorganisms could be isolated from an infected person and then cultured. The third was that if the cultured microorganisms were introduced into a healthy host, a disease would develop. The last idea was that microorganisms should be able to be isolated from the newly diseased host and cultured again. The first idea explains the link between microorganisms and disease. The three other ideas explain that the metabolism of microorganisms will cause disease when they are transferred into a healthy host. Different microorganisms will cause disease in various ways. Bacteria, for example, release toxins as they multiply. The toxins affect cells in the region of the infection and often in other regions of the body as well. Bacterial diseases are usually treated with antibiotics. For our first activity, students, let us ensure we understand the germ theory. Please determine if the following statements are true or false.
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Welcome back, students. I am sure that was a simple activity for you. Let us review the answers together. The statement, Louis Pasteur developed the germ theory, is true. The statement, the germ theory states that disease is only caused by bacteria, is also true. The statement, all microorganisms cause the same kind of disease, is false. We know that different microorganisms cause different diseases. The statement, as infectious bacteria multiply, they release toxins, is true. Finally, Robert Koch stated that disease-causing microorganisms will not spread if they are transferred into a healthy host, is false. In fact, the microorganisms will spread in a healthy host. Good work, everyone. Let us continue with the lesson. Microorganisms that cause disease are transmissible. This means that there is a source of infection. The original sources of microorganisms that infect people are called the reservoir of infection. The reservoir of infection can be defined as any person, animal, plant, soil, or substance in which an infectious agent normally lives and multiplies. The reservoir typically harbors the infectious agent without showing symptoms of the disease. It also serves as a source from which other individuals can be infected. People acting as the reservoir of infection are sometimes called the carrier of this disease. Some examples in which diseases can be transmitted are by drinking contaminated water, or eating contaminated food, sexual intercourse, or blood-to-blood contact. Infectious diseases show evidence of illness. These are called symptoms. They result from an infection, presence, and growth of disease-causing microorganisms. Infectious disease is just one type of disease. Disease can be caused by a number of other factors, such as deficiencies or genetics. A functional disease is one in which there is an abnormal change in the function of an organ, but no structural alteration in the tissues involved. There is an obvious malfunction in the organ or the system without being any obvious sign of disease. An example of functional disease is irritable bowel syndrome, in which there is no sign of damage or disease in the large intestine, but it does not function normally. For our last activity, students, let us compare the characteristics of infectious diseases and functional diseases. Can you write down 2 characteristics about each form of disease?
Students, let's get ready. Begin. Time's up. Let's get back to our lesson.
Hello again, everyone. I hope you were able to complete this activity. You may have written that infectious diseases are caused by microorganisms and that infectious diseases usually have visible symptoms. You may have written that functional diseases have an organ or system malfunction, and there are no obvious signs of disease. Did you write down the same answers? If so, you are correct. Well done. This brings us to the end of our lesson. Today, we discussed the germ theory and how it influenced the study of microorganisms and disease. We also learned about infectious diseases and functional diseases. Until next time, thank you, teacher. Thank you, students.